Ray, you study mental health and stuff like that?
Yes, my undergrad degree is in psychology.
Have you heard of trichotillomania?
Um, can you explain what it is?
May I ask how old you are?
That's gonna tell us what trickle. How do you pronounce it?
That's why I'm asking how old you are. Trichotillomania.
So my age depends on you explaining what it is.
It does. Because I've heard of it 40 years ago. So
Do you
I
want
want
a
to know.
cookie?
No, no, no. I'm
Oh
asking
shit,
you.
here we go.
I'm asking you. You don't have to get smart about it. I'm
Put
I'm
asking you
not
judgment.
gonna
because
give my age right now
I'm
just because
asking.
I don't see
You
the
don't have to give
relevance.
your age. You don't. I understand that you don't have to, but I'm asking because if you were younger, I understand you not understanding what it is. But if you're studying based on my family being in social work and having psychology degrees years ago, aunties, great aunties, you wouldn't know because it's something that is not on a broad spectrum.
Good.
That's an interesting question. When it comes to things like that, we always look at nature versus nurture. We always say the genes are the gun, and then the environment is what unloads the gun, right? That triggers the gun. So, like, if we're siblings, we have the same DNA, but depending on, once again, the environment, how we process the environment is going to determine on that would determine how certain traits show up. If that makes sense.
Um, if I could try to take it in a different direction, I don't think that trauma is subjective. My perspective on that comes from the fact that most of what we're listing from a human perspective, we're not designed to deal with trauma impacts that are outside of like a normal flow. They observe human behavior in very mass situations, and you typically can depict what people are normally going to do just based on patterns and consistency. Trauma is linked to this idea that something impacts that person and then they may hold it in and it alters them, but it's supposed to alter them if it's outside of a normal approach. Like seeing a parent strike another parent is not normal. That's considered abnormal. So it would impact, but it makes it act different. And I think that we kind of
That's
go
not
from,
trauma, though. I mean, if you saw it happen over and over, it could become. But if one time your dad slapped your mom, I mean, that's just an unfortunate situation.
well, I'm speaking from the standpoint, and this is just my perspective, that our design as humans is not designed to deal with impact outside of things that are, balanced and normal. It could
Mm,
be it could be
that's not true.
okay, explain.
As humans, our brains are actually wired to the reason why we're so attracted to negativity is from an evolutionary. It's for an evolutionary reason. We're actually as human able to deal with negativity, bad situations, and danger. We've evolved to now we look for things to go wrong. We actually live in a much more safer, nicer world than we would have had to live in even 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. So now we're actually looking for things to go wrong. We're actually very wired to deal with things outside of what's comfortable for us.
Well, see, that would kill your own argument if that was the case, because there would be no case to correct what is proper. If it was proper, we wouldn't fix it. We fixed it to balance out the world to make it more livable, which would more further prove my point. We're looking at normal. We're looking at seeking balance. When something's out of balance, we correct it. Well, I don't believe we are designed as humans to deal with impact that throw off normality. You can observe this just going outside to any major event that has thousands of people. Most people do the same thing. But if you see a group of people start to fight, that's an alternative response to human behavior. That's not normal. What's normal is getting your ticket, finding your seat, sitting down, and observing the event.
But now you have to get into what's normal. Now the word normal and how somebody processes what's normal, that's subjective because you can't be like, well, because something didn't go my way, like someone said earlier, and now I'm traumatized. No, that's not correct.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. We may be saying the same thing. You used the analogy of a gun and bullets. gun is normal. That's structure. Like that's
Gun
what's
is in the way I use it is actually your DNA. That's what you're born with. When you're born into the earth, you are already programmed with a set of traits from your mother and father. That's the gun in this case.
which would be normal. Meaning, if we're analyzing it from structure, what I'm saying, that's normal. Abnormal is like somebody
What's
who has
normal?
normal structure, something that's consistent, something that's replicable, something that is almost expected to occur. That's normal. Down syndrome is not normal. People who are on the spectrum is not normal. That's abnormal. Does
Being
that make
gay.
But
Mm,
I got a quick
ooh,
question for you though.
I
I
don't
got a
like
question
just
for you.
me personally as a clinician. I'm not going to call those diagnoses certain necessarily abnormal, because then if that's the case, you will say, well, that means neurotypical is that gets into the neurotypical versus neurodivergent. Well,
Well, I'm not trying to offend your clinical background. I'm speaking to the context of the conversation based on even what you said. Society is structured in a way. Humans are structured in a way to live a life that I would say is more linear in the sense of we can assess trauma, we can assess trouble, so we correct. But to speak to where people are supposed to be comfortable with dealing with trauma, that's what I think is occurring, is that we're now like, oh, well, we need to learn how to cope. Well, yes, but the fact is that we're not designed for it. Like our bodies are not designed for stress. Stress kills more people than anything else on the planet. Our bodies are not designed. It's not designed for that. Does that
but I
make sense?
want,
that
I,
does
Wait, can
make
I?
sense, but I want to
I have a quick.
differentiate between stress and trauma. You see, because
Can't they? Aren't they like one and the same? Aren't they synonymous?
No trauma.
no,
So
So
let me ask you.
trauma is a
Let me
more
ask you.
extreme
Yeah, it leaves a
are,
case.
lasting effect.
are
Stress
we
is indeed.
saying that saying somebody with Down syndrome, or trying to, we don't want to say Down syndrome is not normal because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings? Because having Down syndrome is not fucking normal. Being retarded is not normal.
I don't think
Like,
you're supposed to use that word.
I don't talk like that, and I'm not God, so I feel like God is incapable of making mistakes. So there were, if it was really something so abnormal, then how was God able to create it?
the same way he was able to create men with to have 6 fingers, or women who are cockeyed. Like,
Yeah,
they're
it's
deformities.
biological deformity.
They're deformed from the norm. And if you have Down syndrome, you are deformed from the norm. The extra chromosome kind of fucks you up. God did that though.
But what determines if something is messed up or not to you?
It's not to me, it's what determines it to science. Somebody with Down syndrome is not normal. That's why they have a syndrome, Down syndrome.
No, what do you call the syndrome for? Like, say you was born in America, raised in America. Everybody in your entire family that you've ever known is from America, but you start calling yourself the last African and only attack Black American communities. What diagnosis would you say that is?
they
Fuck.
don't they don't have the wrinkles in their brain. Their brain is like
Yeah,
silk.
they smooth brain, like fucking
Yeah,
koalas.
they
That's what
got
they
silk
are.
brain.
All
But
right,
I
hold
do
on.
want to
Oh
say
my god.
to what Willie was saying. He's just saying that it is abnormal because normal is what happens in large numbers. But you
Typical,
know,
yeah.
they're the minority, but he's not taking away their humanity. He's not saying that they're like less than. It's just
That's
that
important to yeah, that's important to emphasize, because I
yeah,
don't want to piggyback off that, because then it could come across like that. I'm not here to say right or wrong. One thing I have learned is from dealing with humans is it's so nuanced. That's why I said all y'all are correct. It's I could say people on the spectrum are not normal, but these the children I work with are brilliant. They're amazing. So I can't say that because I see them being more advanced in areas where neurotypical children are not. Like in music and mathematics, Elon Musk is on the spectrum. So it's kind of hard for me. Like I said, in my position, it would be irresponsible for me to be like, oh, normal versus abnormal, because the deeper I get into this field, you see that, like I said, God is perfect, and it's really a line. We're not really here to say what's normal and not normal, because the things you might think are normal, someone else may think is abnormal. But yeah, I can see
So
what y'all saying about the chromosomes and what's expected in humans and things like that. But I just want to be
Some
responsible and
True.
not talk like something is better, or I don't want to create a hierarchy, if that makes sense.
It's
Got
definitely
it.
better
True,
to
real
not have
quick.
Down
True,
syndrome than it is to have it.
real quick. I have one question for True, real quick. Do you think that it could be traumatic if a spider crawls on a person?
Yeah, I believe it can be traumatic. Sure.
Would you be traumatized if a spider crawls on you?
No.
So then you just proved my point. Trauma subjective.
But wait, I wanted to say this real quick, and this may give some type of understanding. So I learned that trauma is subjective depending on who is experiencing it, because there's something called acute trauma, chronic trauma, and developmental trauma. So what Ray was saying, some parent or whoever said it, a parent is striking another parent in front of a child. That will be called an acute trauma because it was a short-term thing. Well, for the child, every child may not think it's trauma or have anything that's holding them so, emotional to it, but a child can. So if they're like, oh my gosh, I seen, my mom hit my dad, and they're having night terrors. It just happened one time. It don't have to happen 10 times for them to have a trauma. But I feel like it's just different levels to it. So
How many times would it
that's
take
why it's subjective.
How many times does it take a woman whose husband beat her ass to traumatize her? It doesn't take. It has to be sustained. He could beat her ass one good time, and then she's fucked up for the rest of her life. PTSD, all of that shit. And then there's other women, you got to beat her 10, 15 times a day for a year before it affects her. So that's how you know trauma is subjective. It's based on who experiences it.
Right.
What bothers me might not bother True. What bothers Pearl might not bother that straw. But like either way, though, like I'm saying, if the trauma is definitely going to be subjective based on who's experiencing it.
I think I don't want to get lost in how I was trying to deliver it. To me, trauma is not subjective. I think the response of trauma is subjective. That to me is what I would better receive, because
That's
trauma,
fair.
from my premise, is saying that all of us are in avoidance of what is affecting us negatively, whether that is a domestic event, whether that is a sexual event. To that point, humans, by and large, are in avoidance of things that will alter what would be considered normal in interaction. So that to me would mean that trauma is not subjective. How I respond to it is subjective. That's why a spider wouldn't affect me, but definitely could affect Trev potentially.
But Ray, you're saying the same thing. The trauma is not subjective, but the response is. So the trauma will be subjective because Trev mentioned a spider crawling on somebody, and I would say somebody getting hit by a car. There's still trauma. It's still trauma. It's just it's the same. So all subjective though. Ray, you study mental health and stuff like that?
Yes, my undergrad degree is in psychology.
Have you heard of trichotillomania?
Can you explain what it is?
May I ask how old you are?
That's gonna tell us what trickle. How do you pronounce it?
That's why I'm asking how old you are. Trichotillomania.
So my age depends on you explaining what it is.
It does, because I've heard of it 40 years ago. So,
do you want a cookie?
No. I'm asking you.
Here we go.
I'm asking you. You don't have to get smart about it. I'm asking.
I'm not gonna give my age right now just because I don't see
you
the
don't have to
relevance.
give your age. You don't. I understand that you don't have to, but I'm asking because if you were younger, I understand you not understanding what it is. But if you're studying based on my family being in social work and having psychology degrees years ago, great aunties, you wouldn't know because it's something that is not on a broad spectrum. But trichotillomania is an obsessive compulsive disorder, mental.
Like believing you from Africa and you not.
Okay. And I just want to say, DJ, I'm gonna probably be learning to the day I die. I don't think there's an age limit on learning. That's why I asked you what it is. That's how I'm able to learn and able to know things, because I ask questions when I don't know. I don't pretend to know things I don't know.
Right. And that's why when I asked you, I'm asking how old you are, because not to judge you, but more or less to understand. If you're younger, you give me not mentality. You're beautiful. So
Thank you.
you give me 25. You're gorgeous. So
Thank
You,
you.
you
you
give
do
me
look
young.
young, and I'm
You look
glad we
Thank
had
you.
a
you
trick
look
of solar
young.
mites for
And so
last.
based on that, it's not something that like Prozac, they're banning those. All the things that they gave for trichotillomania when I was a child for anxieties and bipolar in California, when I was a child, if you were
Mm.
25, you wouldn't understand what trick is because trick has been put under the radar. All
What are
those
some symptoms of it for the audience because they
some
still may
symptoms
not
of
understand?
trick, some symptoms for trick was pulling out eyebrows and eyelashes and hair.
Mm. Yes, I know exactly what that is. And when you said the name, it sounded familiar, but like I said, I didn't know exactly if I remember correctly. I do know what that is.
Okay.
And I
So
do want to, when we speak on these things about mental health, family ties, you got to understand some of it is spiritual too. Meaning, when we came here, we're supposed to learn these lessons and overcome these things in our lifetime. That's part of the plan of why we came here. I do want to say
women
that,
do.
and this is why we should not identify with anything that we go through in this life because it's all a test, and the whole point and the goal is to overcome it and come out better.
Mm.
So why do people pull out their hair and eyelashes?
When
What
it
is the
comes
cause?
to obsessive compulsive disorder, once again, it's genetic. You can't disregard the genetic component. So you may already be predisposed to have obsessive tendencies, and then if you're put in certain situations that trigger those tendencies, this is when you may start displaying the behavior potentially. And it's a toss up, and that's why I say this thing is nuanced, because even if you go through that and you're traumatized, you can come out on the other end. And look at Eminem, and when he talks about how his mother traumatized him growing up, it's all up to the individual. But we don't, like I said, it's nuanced, it's different for everybody. I would just tell everybody, do your best to try to overcome things
It
you've gone
typically
through. Don't
starts at
identify with it.
adolescence. It typically starts at adolescence and trauma in the foundation. It typically starts prior to when a young girl gets her cycle. Someone in the comments said it's typically girls. Um,
Mm.
it is typically girls, but there's a lot of men that do it as well. But there's majority women that do it. Young girls start at the age between it starts between the ages of 4 and 9 years old.
Mm.
So it starts with eyebrows, eyelashes. It's related to nail biting and skin picking, and then it gets as deep as cutting.
Yeah.
But trick
Yes,
generally
OCD.
starts with anxiety. Yep, it is starts in anxiety and trauma within the child at a young age. So that's
But
why I brought it up.
there are other forms of OCD too. You may have people that excessively clean and do other things. So OCD is a very broad spectrum, as are most of these diagnoses we're speaking of. I would encourage everybody to do their research, or and if they feel like them or their children may have symptoms, please get them tested, because my work is with dealing with the children. So we will have a generation of people that are growing up that are emotionally regulated. That's the whole goal, because a lot of times adults are so hard-headed and they don't want to seek therapy and they think they have all the answers, but the children are the future and they're the next generation, and they actually have potential to be great. And I'm so fulfilling with working with them.